And our next slide is our presenter today is UF IFAS Extension Agent Jeremy Rhoden. He is a residential horticulture agent in Marion County, which is Ocala. He's also the Master Gardener Volunteer Coordinator there. And Jeremy, I found an older picture of you in a greenhouse. Jeremy worked with hydroponics and youth students in Marion County for many years prior to coming to us as an extension agent in Marion County. And his work there is focused on, of course, residential horticulture, but his graduate work is focused on pollinator protection, conservation, and pollinator plants. And he got involved in a real exciting project that he is here to talk to us today about. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. And we welcome Jeremy Rhoden today. And we're so thrilled that you can be here, Jeremy.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Wendy, for having me. I'm super excited to be here with you all to talk about the Great Florida Pollinator Census. So I'll go ahead and pull that up here. Let's see. All right. So hopefully everybody can now see this. So I again appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all today on the Great Florida Pollinator Census. I know that over the past several months, I've had the opportunity to meet several of you from all different counties to talk about the census with you all. And I know some of you are already doing things outside of Marion County in your own counties. And so I greatly appreciate the participation so far. And I'm absolutely thrilled to share this with you all. And I hope by the end of today that you will consider being involved in it, whether from a county program perspective through the whole program, or even if you do it individually, I would greatly appreciate it. And I think that you will really enjoy it. So just a little bit as we get started. See if I have my clicker working here. So what is the pollinator census? So to kind of summarize this up really quick before I further explain it, this Pollinator Census is a 2-day event that takes place every year in August, where we invite citizens to sit and observe insects in their landscape or local garden. It can be at a demonstration garden, a state park, anywhere you can find blooming flowers, and sit there for 15 minutes and simply observe the insects that you see during that time. We provide a count sheet, or you can find this count sheet online. It's the Great Southeast Pollinator Census count sheet, which I'll show you on the very next slide. And basically using this count sheet, we ask that you record the number and type of insect pollinators that you observe. And then once you finish with that, the participant can then upload that data into the Great Southeast Pollinator Census database. And so I'll show you how that's done. So if you take a look at this slide here, this is what our pollinator count sheets look like. So if you notice, we at the very top ask what plant you are sitting in front of observing. So let's say you're doing firebush, for example. You'd put the date, the time of day that you're doing it, what are the weather conditions, the temperature, and then your name there. Or if there's a couple of you doing it and you're doing one count together, that's fine, or you can do them individually. And then we have the insect groups broken up into 8 main groups, and those are carpenter bee, bumblebee, honeybee, small bee, wasp, flies, butterflies and moths, and other insects. And before you start thinking, well, how in the world does the public learn the difference between all of these? We'll get to that, and I'll talk about that shortly. But this is just the count sheet. When you're done doing your 15-minute count, at the very top of the sheet, you can see there's a QR code where you would scan that QR code and you would upload your findings onto the Great Southeast Pollinator Census website. So why are we doing this? Why are we even doing a pollinator census? What's the importance of it? Why should citizens be concerned with pollinators and be involved in pollinator research? Well, so let's talk about the current situation. So first off, 85% of the flowering plants in over 125 global crops are dependent on animal pollinators. And if you bring that even closer to home to an individual person, 1 in every 3 bites of food we eat are also dependent on animal pollinators. And if you haven't been in a bubble, you've probably heard already that pollinator populations have steadily been declining over time. However, the good news is research lately has been indicating or has indicated that microhabitats such as patio porches or small home landscape backyards, front yards, that these can benefit pollinator populations and can even increase pollinator diversity within an ecosystem. So, and then with that being said, the last thing too, that's a very important factor in all of this is there has been a general interest in pollinator gardening lately. So this goes even before the pandemic where gardening kind of picked up as a hobby for everyone. But even before that, the public has been interested in finding ways of what they can do to protect pollinators, whether that's planting more pollinator gardens, being involved with different pollinator organizations like Xerces Society, Pollinator Partnership. All of those organizations have been seeing ongoing increasing activity within their organizations even prior to the pandemic. So we know that the public is interested in doing something about the pollinator shortage, and more people are learning about why it's important. So with that being said about the public interest, Georgia took note of this as well. In fact, there's a researcher there who works for Georgia Extension with the University of Georgia by the name of Rebecca Griffin. And you'll see a picture of her later throughout this presentation, but she also was observing these trends. And so one of the things that she decided to do in her graduate studies and her work for UGA was to come up with a citizen science program where those individuals who are interested in helping pollinators can be a part of a solution that helps these pollinator populations. And so what she did was she came up with the very first pollinator census, which was called the Great Georgia Pollinator Census. This began in 2019, and the three primary goals of this were one, to increase sustainable pollinator habitat. So not just general pollinator habitat, but sustainable habitat, not feeding them just for one season, but something that will sustain their life cycle season after season and continuously. And this means also promoting pollinator habitat in different ways. So this includes incorporating multiple colors of flowers, flower shapes, leaf foliage shape for habitat, water resources. So really providing an entire habitat from every life or for every life cycle of the pollinator. The second objective was to teach the public, or is to teach the public about the importance of insects. So being able to identify how insects provide us with clean water, clean air. Why are they important to our economy? Why are they important to our ecosystem? How do we depend on them? And oftentimes people are very blind to this. In fact, we can go out and do presentations from a Master Gardener program, and still on doing presentations on pollinator talks, it's interesting to read over the survey results when people say, I've always wanted butterflies, but I can't stand wasps and bees. Your presentation opened my mind to being more accepting of them in my landscape. So we still hear that from grown adults who aren't really understanding the true value of these creatures in our everyday lives. And then finally, the last objective is to provide useful data to research through citizen science. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we go through here. So from the beginning in 2019, it was very clear there was an interest in protecting pollinators. As I mentioned, the number of interested individuals was going up. In the very first year that they did this, Georgia had over 5,000, or I'm sorry, close to 5,000 people participate in their first pollinator census from 135 counties in Georgia. And with that, once you do your upload of your count, it asks you on the web page, like, have you planted or modified a pollinator garden as a result of being involved or participating in the pollinator census? And over 900 people had reported that they had done so. And this was all within the first year. So that immediately was meeting that goal of increasing sustainable pollinator habitat. So it was really good to be able to see this within the first year. Of course, it wasn't long after that other states started hearing about the pollinator census. And so South Carolina joined in 2022. And then a year later, North Carolina then decided to join. And because of 3 states being involved with it, they decided to change the name at that point to the Great Southeast Pollinator Census. Where it currently stands today, so last year in 2023, those were the 3 states that participated in the census, and over 12,000 people participated, and they counted over 717,000 pollinators. And to date, as of what was reported last August of 2023, there's been over 2,500 sustainable pollinator gardens that have been planted as a result of participating in the pollinator census. So this program has been very effective. Another thing that has come from this program is I mentioned the third objective was to provide useful data for research. We have to take it with a grain of salt because we do understand that this is citizen science research. So at the end of the day, in my opinion at least, and I think this would probably be the same of Rebecca Griffin, who is the coordinator of it, at the end of the day, if we can get them, the general public, to at least acknowledge the importance of our pollinators and insects in general, and also to increase sustainable pollinator habitat for them, regardless of whether or not we can say that the bee that they counted as a fly was incorrect on that sheet, that is a minor detail, but those other two objectives are still being met. However, even though we do have to take with a grain of salt what they're saying in terms of what they're reporting, it has still opened up opportunities for professional scientists to come in and do research studies. So an example of that is our state butterfly, the zebra longwing. It was believed to only fly as far north as Valdosta, Georgia, which if you're familiar with Georgia, that's kind of in the south part. Actually, it pretty much is at the south part of Georgia. However, through this pollinator count and just interactions with people who have participated in the census, there are actually hundreds of people who have reported seeing the zebra longwing all the way up in the northern parts of Georgia, close to the state line. So with that being said, even though, again, this is citizen science, what that has done is that has now opened up opportunities for researchers to look into what's driving the zebra longwings population up further north into Georgia. So last I heard from the coordinator, Rebecca Griffin of the Southeast Pollinator Census, this is something the entomology department at UGA was looking at, actually creating a true scientific study to see what exactly is driving those populations up north. So again, it's kind of opened that up. And another example is they recently were able to the state of Georgia recently just put a numerical value of what pollinators contribute to the Georgia economy. And a lot of that information came from part of the data that was submitted through the Southeast Pollinator Census for the state of Georgia. So again, it's providing useful information to science through citizen science. All right, and so fast forward 2023, I was introduced to Rebecca Griffin, the coordinator, as I have mentioned her several times now, of the Great Southeast Pollinator Census. And this happened, I was taking a landscape pest management class in my graduate courses at UF, and I had to interview someone who wrote a journal article about something that interested me, and that was about bee populations in urban environments and urban cities. And so that connected the two of us. And in that conversation, as we spoke over a series of a few weeks, it kind of opened up the opportunity for Florida to get involved in the Southeast Pollinator Census. So Becky had been looking for over a year for someone within Florida Extension that kind of had the same interest in pollinators as she did. And when this opportunity came open, she presented it to me. I kind of said, you know, I love the idea of this. Let me talk about it with my master gardeners and see if this is something that they would be interested in participating as well. We had already, as a master gardener group, had been getting a lot of survey results back that indicated that people were very interested in not only pollinator gardening, but also native gardening. And if you're familiar with pollinator plants, you know that oftentimes that goes hand in hand with native gardening. And so essentially, after speaking with our master gardeners in Marion County, they agreed that this could be a great platform. And so together we created a Great Florida Pollinator Census Committee, and we've been working on that since. And so last year in 2023, Becky allowed us to participate as a trial in the Great Southeast Pollinator Census. So we did that last August. And after we did that, we kind of had our confirmation. We knew this was something that we wanted to be involved with. So in 2024, with that being said, Florida officially joined the Great Southeast Pollinator Census. We have a year-round climate here for the most part for pollinators of all kinds. So this kind of make our conditions pretty favorable, and also probably have a really nice diversity of insects compared to other places. But this is an opportunity for us to see that. And then, as I mentioned before, we know gardening for pollinators is a very popular topic, not just in our county, but I've heard from other master gardener coordinators as well that it's one of their most popular requested topics. So we know that the interest is there and people are interested in doing it. So our thought to this was, you know, if those pollinator sustainability efforts are already taking place around the state with individuals wanting to do it, why not put our heads together and form a big organization or a big committee to do this? And folks sit on a larger scale. And so that's led us to the Great Florida Pollinator Census. So now we've worked with UF IFAS. They have helped us with branding for this. So this is our new logo. We're in the process of creating several other things like presentations, and we have a new brochure, all sorts of things that I'll talk about here shortly. But before we get too much further, I would like to take the opportunity here to show you a video of how the census actually works, because I know that some of you still are questioning exactly how this takes place. So hopefully this will help.
Hi, my name is Becky Griffin, and I'm the coordinator of the Great Southeast Pollinator Census. And today I'm going to show you how easy it is for you to successfully participate in the census. The first thing you need is a favorite pollinator plant. And that's just a plant in your yard that's already showing insect activity. You need to have a census counting sheet and head out to the garden. I recommend bringing a chair and maybe some sweet tea so you can get comfortable. Get close enough to your plant so that you can observe the insects going on and off the plant, but far enough away that you're not interfering in the insect activity. Before we get started counting insects, take note of the weather conditions. Is it sunny, cloudy, maybe a little rainy? Jot down the temperature as well. We need to know the name of your plant. The scientific name isn't important, just a common name will do. When you're ready to count, you're going to set your watch or your phone timer for 15 minutes. And every time an insect lands on that plant, you're going to put a tick next to one of 8 insect categories. They are carpenter bee, bumblebee, honeybee, small bee, wasp, fly, butterfly. If an insect lands on your plant that doesn't fit into one of those categories, it goes into the other insect category. One of the questions I often get is, how can I tell the difference between these insects? How do I know it's a carpenter bee instead of a bumblebee? Well, on our website, we have an insect counting and identification guide that will help you tell the difference. Also, check out what your local extension office has to offer. Often they have prep classes getting people ready to count for the census. They also may have an actual event on a counting day where you can go and count with them, just so you feel a little more comfortable. But just observing the insect counting guide and maybe following us on social media, you will have all the skills needed to successfully identify the insects that you need for the census. Once you've done your counting, you've counted for 15 minutes, you can go to the website and upload your counts. Then I want you to take a minute and congratulate yourself because you've done something great for pollinators today. The Great Southeast Pollinator Census is protecting pollinators one count at a time.
All right. So hopefully that gave everyone, whoop, let me pause that. See if we can get it going here. All right, so hopefully that kind of answered some other questions or any gaps in knowledge that I didn't get to for you all. I also wanted to show you, this is the Great Southeast Pollinator Census website. And so I'm going to just kind of show you a little bit what is on here. So if you go to the website, of course, you can find that video on here as well. If you would like to share that out with the public, if this is something you're thinking about being involved with, it is certainly on there. There is also an area where you can sign up for the newsletter, which regularly sends out information about the census. There's how to join the count. And then at the very top, there's all different things up here. You can see all of the data from the previous census all the way back to 2019. And you can click this and break it down by state. You can even break it down by county. And there's also quite a bit more data that we keep that isn't necessarily publicized, but if there's something specific you're looking for that is something we question, you can always reach out to Becky Griffin up at UGA, and she is happy to get that information for you. So for example, if you're in a certain county and you want to know how many people in that county participated, what was the most common pollinators that were seen in that county, she can get that information for you all. So it's a lot of great things. The other great thing about this is, even though we didn't change anything this year in terms of the count sheet for Florida, but just because it is our first year and we kind of just want to see how it goes for the state. But in the future, we do plan to have more specific categories on the actual data entry portion of the website. When you go to upload your data count, it will ask you some specific questions that relate more to Florida. So we're going to be working with the UF entomology department to see how we can further utilize this platform to get data for the entomology department at UF. If you're interested in doing the count, there's a count tab at the top here. And when you click on that, it has the insect counting identification guide booklet, which kind of breaks down all of those insect categories and how to help you differentiate between them. It has a PowerPoint created especially for educators to use in their classrooms, or that you can use to go share this information. And this one is a pretty general PowerPoint. We have since created a specific Florida one that you can use, and you're going to see some of that. And then it also has the counting page sheet on there as well, so you can always go on here and access that counting sheet. There's FAQ, there's other resources on here, marketing materials for the event if you're wanting to do it in your county. There's a whole tab on here for educators, and this not only includes public school education, but anyone else who's interested in taking this out and teaching individuals about it. And so there's a lot of great information about this entire program all at this website. Likewise, they also have a decent Facebook page that they regularly post on, and it's interesting because they also allow the public to post photos of pollinators they've seen and comments and things in the main feed, and they're really good about responding to those things as well. And you can find that on Facebook just simply by searching for the Great Southeast Pollinator Census. So let me get back to our presentation here. All right, so I'm going to kind of show you how we have the insect categories broken down. So this is like our presentation that we have been sharing out with the folks in our community to kind of help them understand how we look at these insects. And again, we don't expect them to memorize all of this. We actually encourage them when they do the count sheet that they can use the insect identification guide that's on the Southeast Pollinator website. And that's basically what this information is you're going to see on the following slides. So the first one we talk about is carpenter bees. Carpenter bees are pretty easy to distinguish because of the fact that they have what we call shiny hiney's, whereas bumblebees actually have fuzzy rears, and we'll talk about that here shortly. But that's one of the main differences between the two. And so when we're telling people to look at these, we're telling them look at the abdomen of the insect. We also go on and tell them about their size, their coloration, what their hair is like, all of those things, because even though they're not going to memorize all this, as I mentioned, it's still teaching them those different aspects of this. One of the examples that Becky likes to give is in their first year, they had someone come up to them and say, well, I don't see the dew claw on the insect on its hind leg. And it was just very interesting them knowing scientific terms for the anatomy of the bee, simply because of them being involved in the education process of this. So anyhow, that's just one example. Also with carpenter bees, they build nests by chewing holes in wood, sometimes in homes, barns, or fences. Some of you may have experienced this yourselves. And then pollen is easily collected on all of the hairs above the abdomen, but not so much on the abdomen because there's an absence of hair. With bumblebees, they can be 10 to 19 millimeters, so they're slightly smaller. Their body is covered with yellow and black hair. They tend to be a fat bee with a small head, a large thorax and abdomen. And as I mentioned before, they have fuzzy rears. So that's how we differentiate between those two, which are probably the ones that are most commonly confused. The next group are honeybees, and these are pretty common in terms of, or pretty specific in terms of what they look like, because they are covered generally in like a golden hair. They are 12 to 15 millimeters, brown or black stripes on the body. And as I mentioned, the golden brown hairs cover their body. Anything smaller than a honeybee, we tell them to classify as a small bee. So this can be your leafcutter bees, sweat bees, or anything smaller. And if you're familiar with any of our native bees, you'll know that there are a ton of them. I mean, some of them are even smaller than a fly. In Florida, we have over 320, I believe 327 native bees to Florida, and about 27 of those are endemic to Florida, so only found here in the state. Wasps around 13 to 25 millimeters, normally hairless and generally have restricted waistline. So that's a characteristic specifically to wasps that would be helpful for those individuals to be able to differentiate between them. Flies, they only have 2 true wings, whereas other insects have 4. So sometimes this can be difficult to see, but sometimes it's very clear to see. And also they have small antennae, 2 large compound eyes, not very hairy, and their wings are spread apart when not flying. Also, somebody recently mentioned to me that with flies, their large compound eyes are generally touching each other, whereas with bees, there's a space between, or the space between the two is not, and they're touching, but not as much as the fly's eyes are. Not sure if that's true or scientific yet, but it was an entomologist who told me that, so I have not looked it up, but that could be another factor for you. Sometimes people ask, why would you have flies on here? And I always feel that it's a great point to bring this up. There are many entomologists around the world who believe flies do more pollination for our crops than the general honeybee. So if you're familiar with honeybees, they are oftentimes they get the reputation as being like the top pollinator when it comes to our food production. And it's because, for good reason, they do a lot of great things for pollination, and they probably are one of the top, or they are the top, one of the top, excuse me. But as I mentioned, a lot of entomologists do believe that flies actually place higher than they do in terms of their pollination. So just keep that in mind as well. That was something I learned through this process that I did not know before, and I always find that very interesting. One of the flies that you may encounter, or you probably have in Florida, I know I get them actually here all the time during the spring, but are serpent flies. And these are bee mimics, so they intentionally look like they're a bee or a wasp, but they're actually a fly. They have no stinging ability. But again, you can tell based on their large compound eyes, how their wings sit when they land, and then also just because of the fact that they only have one true set of wings. And then butterflies and moths, obviously, these are probably going to be the absolute easiest thing to tell the difference between those other insect category groups. And then the last group we have is any other type of insect. So anything else that you see on the plant that is not one of those previously listed, you would mark it as other insect. All right, so now that you kind of have an understanding of the general pollinator census, what it is, what we do, I'm going to kind of talk to you about how we can spread the word about it and how we are already currently doing that in our county, in Marion County. So first off, with our Master Gardener volunteers, we have a phenomenal group of them in Marion County. We have about 140 of them. Fortunately, this has been something of interest to a pretty decent sized group of them. So we've created a pollinator census committee, and I would say there's probably about 25 to 30 active Master Gardeners who attend those meetings every month. We meet on the third Monday of each month. And within that committee, it's broken into 4 subcommittees. We have a communications team, a speakers bureau team, educational outreach, which is primarily for like more or less, instead of talks that we're doing like at presentations, which we would put under speakers bureau, this is more for like large scale events like festivals, Saturday events, Ocala downtown market, things like that. And then we also have a youth programming team. So our communications teams, they write for local newspapers, magazines. They do a Master Gardener newsletter. They do regular communications with garden clubs throughout our county. They actually just had a newspaper posted today, the very front page of the On Top of the World newspaper, which I believe goes out to over 10,000 residents, was a beautiful picture of a monarch butterfly, and it was all about the Great Pollinator Census. So hopefully that will get some people in that community to get involved as well. We also do a lot of social media campaigning. So in our program as a whole, not just with the census, but we have our main communications team for the Master Gardener program, and they all agreed on all of our social media platforms, as well as everything we're pushing out throughout our news, whether it's newspapers, magazines, whatever. We wanted to have a general focus for this year as the first year about pollinators. So everything that we post, we try to tie back to pollinators in some sense. So if you follow us on Facebook or on our Instagram page, you'll notice the majority of what we are posting throughout this year so far somehow ties back to pollinators one way or the other. And we talk about that in almost all of the posts. And so we have a pretty strong communications team. I'm super proud of them, and they do a lot of great things for our county, and it's been spreading throughout Marion County because of these efforts. But some of the things of the campaigns that we focused on this year, National Pollinator Week was just last week. We had World Bee Day, which was last month. And then there's other things as well. Anytime we hear about something through Pollinator Partnership or Xerces Society, which are 2 great organizations that you can follow that have a lot of, they post a lot about different events that are coming up, recognizing different species, something that you can certainly utilize to your advantage. The Speakers Bureau team, these are the ones doing presentations on all things pollinators. So not just about the census, but they do bee gardening, butterfly gardening, utilizing FFL principles with pollinators in your landscape. And then, of course, introducing everyone to the Great Florida Pollinator Census. And then there's several others as well, but this is a big instrumental part of our program. Without them going out and giving these presentations that explain to people how they can do these things at home, how they can start incorporating a pollinator garden at home, I don't think we'd have the interest there. But because they're doing these things, we're able to tie it and connect it to the pollinator census based on these presentations, and it's getting more people intrigued with the census and wanting to be involved as a citizen scientist. Our educational outreach team, they're participating in local festivals and events. Of course, if you're familiar with our spring festival we do every March, it draws in about 10,000 people. We had a pretty good showing of pollinator census there, had a whole booth there. Our plant sales, we do plant nurseries around the county. We've been popping up in their facilities and letting those owners of those nurseries know about the pollinator census. And one of the things that they came up with is this idea of pollinator parties. And so essentially what this is, we're trying to get those local nurseries, local state parks, botanical gardens, we're trying to get them on the weekend of the census to host a pollinator party booth. And essentially what that is on the Friday and Saturday of the census, they have a booth set up, and as people are there visiting their state park or visiting their nursery, invite them to take a clipboard with a count sheet and sit down in front of a plant for 15 minutes and just do a pollinator count. For the nurseries, hopefully that will help them gain some business, because maybe people might see, oh, this plant is a very great pollinator plant. It's a pollinator magnet. I want to buy some of these for my yard. And for the state park, hopefully it brings people in as well. And so what we're hoping from this is that those organizations, the nurseries and the state parks, will also help in advertising the pollinator census to get more people involved in that. And so they're popping up pollinator parties all over the place. And one of the things that they've done is create what's called a pollinator party packet that has all the information about the census in there, how they can be involved, what they can do for the public to get them involved, how they can advertise it. And so the places we've gone to thus far, most of them have all agreed to do a pollinator party. So I think there's certainly interest out there, and I think these local places are more than willing to partner with Extension for something like this, especially if in the long run it's going to hopefully help their business or bring more people to their parks. And so I think there certainly is interest there, and it's been working pretty well in our favor. Finally, the last subcommittee we have is the youth team. We have 31 elementary schools in Marion County, public elementary schools, and all of them have pollinator gardens growing at this moment. This is a partnership we have with FANS, which is Fitness and Nutrition in Schools. They primarily do vegetable gardens, but they heard about what we're doing, and our master gardeners already helped them with their vegetable gardens. So they agreed to put pollinator gardens in all of the 31 schools. And they're nothing massive. They basically just got pre-built raised beds, and they put them in place, and they spread pollinator seeds in those. And they're getting a lot of pollinators that are being attracted now to those vegetable gardens. And so they've decided to leave those beds growing throughout the whole summer, let the flowers just continue growing and go to seed. And hopefully in August, when they come back at the beginning of the school year, those kids will be able to participate in the census at the local elementary schools with their teachers because they already have that pollinator garden habitat out there. Another part of that, I mentioned FANS, is fitness and nutrition in schools. So the fitness component, which is really neat, the PE coordinator for Marion County Public Schools loved the idea of the schools being involved with the pollinator census. So they have agreed to incorporate a dance that was created by some of our master gardeners. They created what's called the bee waggle dance, and it's a way to teach the kids about how bees communicate with each other, particularly honeybees, with the waggle dance. And they created this dance that goes along with a song, and now they are going to be teaching the coaches this dance to teach to the kids during the week of the pollinator census. So it's tying back to other parts of the school programming as well. And so we're looking forward to seeing that and seeing videos of that. And then from a coordinator's perspective, because I know, master gardeners can want to do this, but I often know that, or I know that oftentimes coordinators' plates are already overflowing. So what I'm trying to do to make it as simple as possible for the coordinator is I've created a Microsoft Teams page, and I am uploading presentations as we make them that are shareable to everyone, including to you all as master gardeners, so they can share it with you. I've created a brochure. We have the count sheets on there, insect identification guides. And then as we create more information and resources, we're going to be uploading them on there, and they would be free, accessible to anyone within University of Florida. So if there is a certain presentation you're looking for, hopefully as a master gardener, you would be able to go to your master gardener coordinator, and they should be able to have access to it. and get the presentation you need so you can go present it wherever you would like. And I've made all of the presentations to be where they can be adapted. So you can change it to put the contact information for you. You can change things to make it more specific for your county. So I wanted to make it as flexible as possible so it would be easier for everyone for their use. Another thing that we did this year, and this kind of ties back to my research for my master's, is back in the spring, we created what was called, or what we call, the Pollinator Ambassador Academy. What this was, in January, I posted a survey on our Facebook page, just seeing how many people would be interested in attending a day-long training from 9 to 4, kind of an advanced pollinator training to learn about what you can do for pollinators in your community and how you can be an advocate for them in your community. So the focus was that people would come out of this program and be able to go to their local leaders, whether it's an HOA community, a city council, your commissioners, whatever, and really advocate for pollinator importance. You know, let's leave the wildflowers growing longer on the side of the road. Let's, you know, allow more people to do Florida-friendly landscaping in their yards, you know, whatever it might be, just having a voice for pollinators within different communities. And we made this program to be a statewide program. And so we posted this survey on our Facebook page, and we wanted to know who would be willing to pay $50 to do this day-long training, who would attend the day-long training, would they be willing to participate in field studies following the training. There are 2 field studies. And anyhow, within 2 weeks, we had 120 people sign up, and we only had 60 seats. So unfortunately, we had to go through and wean everybody throughout that. And I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about the ambassador training. So as I mentioned, it's a day-long certificate program with advanced topics in pollinators. We covered everything from life cycle habitats to pollinator gardening with Florida-friendly landscaping principles. IPPM, it's kind of a new concept, so you may have heard of integrated pest management. IPPM is integrated pest and pollinator management, and that's relatively new, like it probably came out in the past year or 2. And the idea of that, when IPM was originally created, it was more so created for the large scale farmer to get them to use less chemicals and use other alternative methods prior to using chemicals to see if those things would solve their pest issues. And it has been very instrumental in doing just that. Well, unfortunately, from a homeowner's perspective, we can't just go buy bags of ladybugs and release them. And people do it, but most of the time, according to the most recent studies, those ladybugs fly like 2 miles away once they get out of the bag before they even land, because they're just wanting to fly. So it's not really something that works well in the home landscape. So with integrated pest and pollinator management, the idea is to focus on balancing the ecosystem as a whole to attract those natural predators to the landscape to help you maintain the pest balance within your landscape, which means that you have to be okay with occasionally seeing the predatory wasp grabbing one of your caterpillars. Because if you're making it attractive to those caterpillars, it's going to be attractive to this predatory wasp. And if you don't want to have to use chemicals, then the best thing you can do is allow that system to be balanced as much as possible. We also talked about power of voice and advocating for pollinators. So how can we use our voice to be an advocate, you know, start small and grow to a bigger audience. We had one of our agents come in and kind of be like the keynote speaker and talk about her work with Extension. And when she started working with On Top of the World in Marion County, I mentioned them earlier, they have close to 10,000 homes. They were using a ton of water. Over her 5 years of being involved in that program, they've been able to cut back on the water and save millions of gallons of water annually. They basically, over time, there's a group from that HOA, that citizen group that developed because of being involved with FFL presentations. They kind of done their own thing, and then they worked with their HOA leadership to make sure all the newly built homes had bahia grass in the backyard that did not require ongoing irrigation. And so anyhow, it's been a great thing that has happened on Top of the World. They're saving millions and millions of gallons of water every single year. And it all started by these citizens forming a group after they heard an FFL presentation and regularly working with Extension to make this happen over a 5 to 6 year period. And it certainly is happening now. And then there are also more topics that we discussed as well. The participants received an embroidered Pollinator Ambassador polo. They got a binder full of educational materials, a flash drive with resources, and 7 pre-made presentations on it that they could take into their local community and go share those presentations to teach about not only the census, but pollinator sustainable gardening in general. And then also they were added to what I created as a listserv for the pollinator training, or for the pollinator ambassadors to be able to continue their education in pollinator training opportunities. So anytime I hear about an opportunity from University of Florida that's open for them to participate in, or from Xerces Society or Pollinators Partnership, I send out an email to all of those participants to let them know, it's coming up, or this is the cost if you want to do it, blah, blah, blah. And so it's kind of created a nice little cohort of pollinator ambassadors, and it's been really nice. And I'm hearing a lot of great things that have happened thus far. So 58 people participated and graduated. Of the 60 that signed up, 10 counties were represented of those 58 people. They have been advocating for pollinators in their community. I received surveys back just recently from them. And they also actively participated in field studies. In fact, of the 58 that participated, 44 of them completed both field surveys. So we are compiling the data from that, and essentially the field surveys, we were looking at whether plant origin had an effect on the number of pollinators within their landscape. So the first survey was they went into their landscapes and did an entire inventory of every plant they had growing in their landscape. And then the second survey, within 1 week from taking that, they sat and did an insect count for 15 minutes, just like the pollinator count. And the majority of them have indicated to me, for those who have responded to the survey, that they are planning on participating in the census, and that they have others that will be following as well. So the last part of the presentation, how can you help? So the 2024 census dates are August 23rd and 24th, 2024. We always do it on a Friday and a Saturday. And I know you're probably already thinking, why are we doing it in August? It's so hot. Believe it or not, there is a lot of flowering plant material in August. I know it's not the most ideal time to do it, but that is when Georgia chose to do it. One, they wanted the kids to be back in school so they could participate as school groups. Two, they also didn't want to get too far into hurricane season because they already had a count canceled because of that in their trial year in 2018. And so they wanted to move it up. And then also they want it to stay consistent amongst all states. So that way they have consistent data in terms of the time of year and everything else, the day and all of that good jazz. So which I can understand that. So we are looking into possibly adding a second part of this to Florida to potentially do a 2-day count also in April, just to see if we get different numbers, but that's still in the beginning stages. But as of right now, it does stand these 2 dates in August. Another thing you can do to help: plant pollinator habitats. No space is too small. One of the presentations we had in the ambassador training was with Pollinator Partnership. And one of their representatives mentioned, when she was discussing bee gardening, that there are some bees that in their entire life will travel no more than 25 square feet. And so therefore your back patio could be their entire world. So don't think that your space is too small to participate in protecting pollinators, because it certainly can help tremendously. So as I mentioned, microhabitats have been proven over and over again to provide tremendous support for pollinators. You can incorporate host and nectar plants into your landscape. And remember, natives are always a great place to start. There are a lot of Florida-friendly non-natives, and those work too, but can't go wrong with natives. Spread the word. Talk to your friends, family, your neighbors. Let them know about the census. Let them know how easy it is to participate. It's only 15 minutes, and it's something that hopefully will increase their interest in pollinators and help them understand why it's important. Speak with your local schools, your parks, garden clubs, different organizations, your HOAs. Teach about pollinator sustainability and share about the census. And if you're willing, even conduct pollinator parties throughout your communities. And then finally, become a pollinator ambassador. I know right now this is something we did in Marion County. It is something we plan to do every spring, every year. It was very popular. I'm actually doing one with my master gardeners this fall specifically for them, because I didn't really let them sign up because I had so many people in the public sign up, and I want them to be able to take advantage of it as well. But I'm willing to share everything about this training with any other coordinators if it's something they're willing to do. But I do know their plates are full, so I'm not pushing it on anyone, but it is completely available if any coordinators are interested in hosting something like that. But you don't have to become pollinator ambassador to actually go and or to advocate for them. You can be an ambassador yourself just by doing your own thing and joining the census and sharing about that. And as I mentioned, you can participate in the census 24th or 23rd and 24th. It only takes 15 minutes, saving pollinators one count at a time. And so with that, that is my presentation. So I'll end here with my contact information. If your coordinator pollinators are interested and they want to be more involved, please have them reach out to me. Or if you want more information, feel free to reach out to me. I may connect you with some of the members of our Pollinator Census Committee team. And they're more than happy to reach out and speak with you and let you know what we are doing. So.
Really great, Jeremy. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
I think everybody got a lot out of it. Believe it or not, we have 450 people on with us still, so that is great. And I'm going to try to get to the chat box the best I can here. Let me see. Not the chat, the question answer. Okay. So when you're talking about animal pollinators, you are mostly meaning insects, right?
Yeah, insect pollinators make up by far the most animal pollinators. You do have some birds like hummingbirds, some other birds, and then also bats in certain parts of the world. In Florida, bats are primarily omnivores, so they're not focused so much on the plant matter as much as they are on eating the insects, but they do a little bit of pollination here, but nowhere near what they do in other parts of the world and some tropic regions of the world.
Okay, and would you be able to send us a PDF of your presentation so we can post it along with the recording?
Yeah, absolutely. I can certainly do that.
Okay, and would you be able to we'll put the website address in either the chat box, Becky, or if you want to drop it in the question answer box, but probably maybe you could go back to the slide that has the website address on it.
Yeah, let's see. Actually, let me see on here.
And while you're doing that, other people other than MGVs can do the count, right?
Correct. It's open to the entire public. Anyone in Florida can do it. Last I heard, they don't accept the counts from elementary students, middle school and older they do, but they still allow them to do it and, pretend like they're involved with it just because they want it to be more accurate, I guess, even though that's kind of subjective itself. But yes.
Okay. And then they really want you to focus on one plant. So Kevin is asking if could they do multiple plants? Like
That's a great question. So they can certainly do multiple plants. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get the website up here too. But you can do multiple plants in your individual count. You want to sit and watch one plant for 15 minutes. But throughout the 2 days, you can sit and do as many counts as you want. Just each 15 minutes should be in front of one plant.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
It does. And Dr. Martha likes to remind us that flies pollinate mangoes. So
Oh, absolutely.
yes. Kathy Oliver, who you know, says, do you have any concerns about double counting insects around the plants?
So that's a great question. So somebody asked us that last year too. I should have included that in here, but ideally, and if you look on the website, it'll explain this further, but you're counting insect landings. So even if it's the same insect landing on the plant multiple times, you're counting every time that insect is drawn back to the plant. So we're counting overall insect landings. And that's consistent with most entomology studies as well. When it comes to looking at insect preference on plant matter, they do the same thing. So you're counting the insect landing and just watching how many times an insect lands on a plant and counting that.
Okay, and then Mara wants to know, how often a day can you count on the second and the third?
You could ultimately do it every 15 minutes if you wanted to. You just record yourself for 15 minutes each time. And then as long as you record what you have within that 15 minutes, you can constantly do it over and over again.
Okay. All right. Well, I think I like the idea of the pollinator party, getting a bunch of people into your yard and do an account, but I'm kind of social like that. So Dr. Brenda Briel is wondering if you have considered creating a summer educator program, like a summer in-service for school teachers to attend and learn about developing pollinator gardens and then conducting the census with their students.
Yeah, so that is one of the things that I have been thinking about after talking with Becky Griffin. I haven't really got that far. I've spoken with our FANS coordinator in Marion County, and of course, their funding is primarily based on food and nutrition and teaching the kids to eat healthier, but they are interested in being involved in this. I'm just not sure at what capacity, but it has been crossed my mind whether or not to kind of make like a 4-H summer camp out of this and possibly integrate it with our public schools. I've also toyed around with the idea because, I don't have enough things going on apparently. But I've also toyed around with the idea of potentially doing some type of like summer leadership school for like high school age kids that would be interested in doing something that would be in collaboration with UF entomology and potentially using the new DeLuca campus down in Orlando and doing like possibly like a 3 or 4 day event down there. It would take a lot of planning, and I think that would be something that would be years in the making, but I do believe that that could be very instrumental in terms of getting kids involved in this with younger groups. I also just recently learned that the Royal Horticulture Society in London, which I've already kind of mentioned, this is a little windy too, but that they also are now doing an annual pollinator count, and it started in London. They're trying to spread that across all of England. And so they are already working with a lot of school groups. So one thing that's very different with what they're doing is that they are developing like actual trained citizen scientists ahead of time. And then they allow the general public to participate in the counts, but they have these citizen scientists go out and kind of lead small groups of them. And so I don't know, I think it could potentially be something really cool, especially with high school kids. I think it might be something that interests them. So.
Well, Brenda works with high school kids. I'll try to get you two together and see what that might look like. And then Luann wants to know if she could go to multiple locations. So like, she does her yard and then she does a neighbor's yard, or does she does another spot?
Yeah, so you can do it wherever you want. It can be in your own landscape. You can go to multiple landscapes. And I mean, the more counts you do, in my opinion, the better. That's the more participation, the more we can observe and see. I myself have also been interested in this. I've actually sat and done these 15-minute counts probably at least 20 times now in the past year. Just because I'm very interested in seeing what plants are attracting what. And we have a pollinator garden in our demo garden at the extension office. And I feel like every time I'm out there, I see an abundance and a diversity of pollinators on different plants. And it's just really interesting, but it's different at different times of the year too. So these little observations are really teaching me something for my own personal pollinator garden I have in my backyard, because one of the things we talk about in the ambassador program is ensuring that your landscape, if it's a pollinator landscape, that you're feeding them year round, not just during a season, but that you have flower colors and shapes and everything represented through every season of the year to the best of your ability. And so kind of looking at that and doing an inventory of my own landscape has really helped me have a better idea of how I'm helping the pollinators. And so, yes, you can certainly do as many counts as you want during those 2 days. And you can even do them ahead of time too, if you're interested, just as a practice.
Good, good. Donald's wondering, is there a suggested time of day? And speaking about the moths and, other maybe different pollinators arriving at different times of the day.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I do know, if you know Dr. Rachel Mallinger, who is like our native bee specialist for the University of Florida. I had spoken with her maybe a month or two ago, and she had mentioned that I believe she was referencing specifically native bees, that probably the best time of day is probably around 1 to 2 o'clock or 2 to 3 o'clock. So that would be really good if you're specifically looking for that group. But I will tell you, with the ones I've done recently, I've done them at all different times of the day. And I don't know if it's just Florida's climate right now or what, but I've gotten a lot of insect activity between, like, I would say probably 9:30 a.m. and 3 o'clock. Actually, even in the late afternoons, I see a lot, like around 4 or 5. But I would say the prime times that I've seen personally has been between like 9:30 and 11, or 9:30 and like around 3:30. But in terms of the night pollinator counts, I have not heard of anyone who have done night pollinator counts, and I think that would be super cool to see and observe. So if you have a way of maybe perhaps doing like one of those black light headband lights or whatever, and sitting out at night, because as most moths do their pollinating at night, and they significantly provide a lot of pollination services in Florida, well, worldwide, but especially in Florida, they're known to provide a lot of pollination services. So I would be pretty interested in seeing what type of pollinators are pollinating at night. So that could be a really cool observation also.
Good, good. So someone here has mentioned a little bit about pollinators.org, has good resources. And then someone else has asked for you to talk a little bit more about the Xerces Society and their resources.
Yeah, so Xerces Society is, gosh, I believe they are like one of the largest invertebrate protection societies really in the world. I mean, and they've been around for a little while and they do a lot. In fact, for the Pollinator Ambassador Academy, they sent us a lot of material. Likewise, Pollinator Partnership did as well. Both of them are international organizations. And so they have a lot of great resources on their website that are free to the public. They're free to duplicate. So you can print things out, you can copy things in your office. They're free to do all of those things. And also, they actually provided me with specific information for Florida for my pollinator account or my Pollinator Ambassador program I did. So they have specific things that aren't necessarily on their website that they do have. So reach out to them. I believe the contact I spoke with at Xerces Society is someone by the name of Matthew Shepard. And he was really quick with responding. Sarah Wittenberg is the contact I spoke with at Pollinator Partnership, and she's like overall bee gardening and bee advocacy for Pollinator Partnership, and she does a lot. She's based in Arkansas. She's pretty phenomenal, and she zoomed in and did a whole presentation on bee gardening for us, and it was really good. So yeah, I would say there's a lot there. Chip Taylor with Monarch Watch is also another one. Of course, that's specifically with monarchs, but there's a lot of information on Monarch Watch's website you can find. And then, of course, land-grant universities and their entomology departments have good information as well. UF actually has a really good, library, I guess, if you want to call it that, of resources when it comes to pollinator advocacy, pollinator work. Dr. Laura Warner with the University of Florida has also been working with a lot of our entomologists, and they've been working with a lot of homeowners associations throughout Florida and studying their thoughts and perceptions of incorporating pollinator areas into their HOAs. And they've developed all sorts of really neat infographics with UF IFAS. If you look for UF IFAS infographics on how you as a resident can get your HOA to be more considerate of pollinators, you know, spraying those golf fields less, you know, planting wildflower habitat, all those things. And then they also have infographics for how your HOA leaders can get the residents more involved as well. And there's quite a bit of research that's been going into that on their side. And so if you get a chance to read some of their publications, it's very interesting what they're finding in terms of what residents view pollinators as, HOAs, how they've been able to bind those things together and get them working together for pollinator sustainability. So it's really neat.
Good, good. Kathleen's wondering, will Florida have a separate website? And I think I know the answer to that is no, but then my question to that is, will the users be able to see the results on the website and have that broken out by state?
So that is a very great question. I will tell you, and if there's any master gardeners on here from Marion County can answer or say this as well. Our biggest challenge that we are running into right now is we have so many different communities and counties that have reached out to us interested, and the only platform we have to send them is the Great Southeast Pollinator Census website or their Facebook page. And there's some things on there that they're looking for that is specific to Florida or information for Florida. And so we are kind of conflict we're in right now is we're trying to figure out, is there a way for us to have a state website? And Georgia fully supports this. They want us to have our own thing, the Great Florida Pollinator Census, but still be with the Great Southeast Pollinator Census, so we can still all combine our data together. And so I am looking around at that. We've also thought about doing a statewide Facebook page for the Florida Pollinator Census, but of course that has to be approved by UF IFAS and does require a full team to maintain that. And so we're trying to figure out all those logistical parts of that. But ideally, the counts would always be uploaded into the Great Southeast Pollinator Census, so that way it's always there. It will always be accessible on their website in terms of like the main general key data points that are being on, or that they already have on there. And then, like I said earlier, if there's anything specific you want to see, or like if one of the master gardener coordinators wants something specific for their county, let's say I'm in Marion County and I want to specifically ask the question, did you observe any zebra longwings? When they go to upload their count, they'll select what state they're in first, what county, and then once they select their county, it has all the spots that they fill out from the form. And if we want that particular question programmed in there for our county, we can do that. So for example, in South Florida, where they're done work with the Atala butterfly, that might be something really interesting to add for those counties, you know, to see if maybe somebody did observe those while doing the insect count, or how many were reported to be observed. And so that could be something really neat as well. So we do have that flexibility, but in terms of getting information out and like presentations and resources and things that have been updated specifically for Florida, we're trying to figure out a platform for that, as well as like a Facebook page or something that we can keep everybody up to date and constantly thinking about the pollinator census throughout the year and sustaining pollinators throughout the year.
All right. And then Will's is wondering if there would be any way the forms or the count would be available in Spanish.
That's a great question. We have not had anyone request it yet, but we have Becky Griffin, I believe, from UGA was looking into having those done at UGA. So that would probably be our first I guess documents of those. And then from there, if we do something specific for Florida, then we could work with UF to get those things translated as well.
Okay. And how are they from this? Okay, let me ask this one first. Are you planning on doing any more ambassador trainings in 24, and will you make it more available in 25?
Yeah, so I do plan on doing it again in 2024. And I would love to do it every year. It is kind of a big undertaking. I was only able to charge $50 for it just because I had some sponsorship from the beginning, but it would probably be something that'd be closer to $75. But the response rate with it and the amount of people who have not only been involved, wanted to be involved from the beginning, but also who stayed involved and who are still being involved as pollinator ambassadors. And I've been getting emails for what they're doing in their communities, and it's just absolutely amazing. It's everything what I envisioned with it. And so my plan is to continue doing it. I think spring is the best time to do it, and I have it open to anybody in the state that could come to it. But this last time, the only type of advertising we did for it was simply putting it on our Facebook page and posting it to the top. And like I mentioned earlier, within 2 weeks, people signed up for it and filled the class. So yes, I will be repeating it, and I would love to work with other coordinators in other counties if they want to do something similar, or even a portion of it, whatever. I would certainly do that. But I do welcome anyone from around the state who would like to attend. They're more than welcome to come.
Okay, so for the forms and the trifold and the any more information, where should people go for to get the forms and the counts and any other information they can about doing the count and having their pollinator party?
Yeah, so all the insect identification guides and the count sheets can all be found on the Great Southeast Pollinator website, as well as additional resources that Becky and her team has already created. If you want something specific for Florida, the only place right now that I have where I can upload things to make it easy to send to everybody or for you to get it is on the Microsoft Teams page. So any Master Gardener Coordinator or UF IFAS staff can join that team. I have the code for it. I think I actually posted that team code in our coordinators team page. So anyone can find it on there and they should be able to find things. The brochure is easy. I can send that to anybody in an email. The presentations are pretty large files, so they don't really share easy. So it's easier for me to just post it in a general location like the Microsoft Teams page, and then your coordinator can save it on a flash drive for you, or save all of them on a flash drive for you if they would like. And that way you have them all there.
Right. So reach out to your Master Gardener volunteer coordinator, tell them that you've seen this presentation from Jeremy and that the resources are on the Teams page. That would be great. And I think we're good. Hold on, let's see. How do you tell if you're reporting the same insect multiple times?
So
does it matter?
So it's okay if you are reporting the same one. That's not a problem at all. So the idea is that you're counting insect landings on a plant. And so that's what you're reporting is the insect landings.
Yeah, okay.
Or are the insect landings, excuse me.
Terry asked about the Teams page. You'll go through your coordinator for that, and registering for the Pollinator Academy, you're going to have to wait until that goes live. He doesn't have it scheduled yet. And here's a question, Jeremy. Nancy Page has beehives in her backyard. Should she skip the bee count?
No, that actually is one of the questions when you go to upload your count. One of the questions that it will ask you is, do you know of any managed beehives within, I think it says within half a mile of where you did your count. And so that kind of helps give an idea. If you had like, you counted 200 honeybees, that kind of gives them an idea of why you may have had 200 honeybees as opposed to others who only have, 20 on this plan or 10, so it gives them that idea. But also it shows them that you are aware, if it weren't you with the beehives, but you knew somebody else had some around you, that you're aware that there is some pollination management happening around you. So.
Right. And then Cynthia asks, and this is kind of long range, how could this data be used to convince people to limit the use of herbicides and pesticides?
So that's a great question. I think it certainly opens up opportunity for true science as opposed to citizen science. So in my opinion, I feel that by making individuals more observant of these pollinators and how in many cases they really are quite harmless. But right now we're so quick to grab the bottle of Raid, or so many people are when they see these things out in their landscape. But a lot of them are quite harmless and they're just doing their thing, and they serve a very big purpose. But a lot of people don't realize that purpose, and they don't realize how much we truly depend on them. So I think the more people who get involved, the more people who know about the census and the work that pollinators provide us with, and the food, the clean air, clean water, all of those things, I think that hopefully they'll be more slow on that decision to go grab that Raid can, to spray them, or whenever they see a wasp nest on the corner of their house, or, whatever it might be. And also, I think everybody should be aware too that like many insects serve as pollinators. Somebody mentioned to me yesterday, we had a master gardener that was stung by some yellow jackets. And yellow jackets, even though they are predatory, they are also still very important pollinators. And sometimes you have to do what you have to do if they're in the way and they're a danger to, like the yellow jackets, unfortunately, yesterday was right at our front door of our extension office and they were not leaving anyone alone. So we had to do what we had to do, but we tried our best not to have to do anything with them. But my point in saying all that is people, they are all about the poster child pollinators like the monarchs and the honeybees, but oftentimes they forget that those are just two species out of thousands and thousands and thousands that contribute to the food we eat. And so anyhow, so yeah, I think that it could contribute greatly to hopefully decreasing the amount of herbicides, pesticides, and things like that that's used by homeowners, which is often where they're abused or misused. So even though a lot of it's used in large scale agriculture, from what I've always learned most misuse has been from home landscapes. So
yeah, yep. And then just I'm gonna ask you to repeat the website one more time, and then Leslie's wondering if the ambassador training could be adapted to attend online.
Yeah, potentially. I will say the online training, the ambassador training, there's quite a bit of hands-on involved in it and rotations and things of that nature. So we didn't want them just sitting and doing one thing all day. So they do go out and do a pollinator count. And there's several other components that I plan on adapting that's going to be even more hands-on next time around. So there might be components of it we could do online. But for the full experience, it's something that would probably be best to do in person. But we can still figure something out for that for sure.
Okay. And
yeah,
then there's two big thumbs up. Someone's talking about wild coffee being so great for the bees, and the Melochia tomentosa being so great for bees. So those are a couple of native plant suggestions. And then could you remind us one more time the website, Jeremy?
Yep, I'll read it off, and I also posted, and I think Becky also posted them in the chat, but
Okay.
it is a short website. It's HTTP well, I guess you can actually skip that part. It's right here if you can see it on my screen. Right there, highlighted in blue. So GSEPC.org.
Okay,
And that stands for Great Southeast Pollinator Census.org.
great, great. Well, if you have any more questions for Jeremy, feel free to reach out to him or to get back with us. We will be posting a recording and a PDF of the presentation, and be sure to take the evaluation at the end. So thank you all so much. And thank you, Jeremy, for being with us today. It was always a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.